And we're live. Welcome back, everyone. Onan here. I have a special guest, not Jonah, but I have Herschel here. Now, for those of you that have hung out on Twitter, you've probably run across Herschel. For those that haven't, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us as little or as much as you want about your situation in life, how you approach the faith, kind of the issues that we talk about that we've been kind of chatting about, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I'm Herschel. If you've seen me on Twitter, I haven't been on Twitter for that long, but probably like the last 6 or 7 months or so, I've been sort of dipping my toe in and finding interesting accounts like Craig here, among others. But yeah, I'm just a Catholic guy in my mid-30s. I grew up, cradle Catholic, went to Catholic school my whole life. Um, Had a few years off from doing that faith thing in like my early 20s, but most of my life I've been a regular mass attendee, confession, all of that. Had a little bit of a trad phase like
Oh,
10 years ago or so, but I've since
sorry to
gotten
hear that.
well. Yeah, it's actually COVID that really got me out of it, which is weird because I
Oh,
feel like it's the opposite
yeah.
for most people. But really what's been getting me on Twitter, like when I found you and other related people talking about, the sexual ethics of the
Hmm.
church and as it relates mostly to NFP, I was
Yeah.
sort of coming to these
Mhm.
issues from basically the opposite side of things with infertility. Um,
Mhm.
and that sort of made me reassess, I guess, what some of the teachings are, or at least the justifications for them, I guess we could say.
So let me back up just a little bit. So you said you're a cradle Catholic, and if you, and I apologize if you've already said this, were you always pretty active Catholic? Were you kind of nominal Catholic for a while, or you revert? How would you describe the trajectory?
Well, I would say pretty for most of my life, a practicing Catholic.
Hmm.
Like my parents are both Catholic, and my brothers and cousins, aunts and uncles, the whole family really. And like I grew up at a Jesuit parish actually, and then I went to a Benedictine high school. So I've seen sort of a lot of different sides of the faith just from my education and various churches that I've been a part of as an adult. Like I said, I went to sort of a more a Latin Mass community as well. So I've sort of seen a lot of sides of the church. But yeah, I would say practicing Catholic pretty much my entire life, except for, a couple of years in college where I
Yeah.
sort of took that off.
How about your wife? What can you tell us about her faith
Yeah,
background?
she's also a cradle Catholic and practicing as well. She's also, I think, took a few years off too, but her family is a lot like mine. Like Irish Catholic families, and the whole family goes to church and finds that a really important part of identity too. So I think we have a pretty similar background in that regard.
How did you? Were you guys grow up in big families, or how many siblings you guys got?
I've got two siblings, it's like my parents and then three sons, and then she's got four siblings, so she's got a bit of a bigger family. And I know her mom's like one of eight, and her dad's, I think, has more siblings than my parents too. So when you expand out a little bit, her family's way bigger. Like at our wedding, her relatives, her extended family dominated ours, so you really saw it then.
I'm always curious how. So, like, my parents were always Catholic. My parents were both big Catholic families. I know my parents didn't break out the NFP, and I mean, so they were using contraception or something, I'm
Wow.
sure, but they didn't break out the NFP until probably their 30s, and then they had a couple of kids
Uh,
that are much younger than me and my brother, and then my wife. Her parents are Catholic, but they had three kids, and that was all they were going to have. So NFP, but by the time we came around, we understood what the church says. There was no question when we got married that we were going to use NFP, we weren't going to use contraception. Uh, how does that relate to kind of your experience and your wife's experience? Were your families in sort of full on the NFP stuff, or did that come later in life?
I haven't actually heard too much about NFP from my family in
Hmm.
particular. Um, like my parents never really told me to do it or not to,
Yep.
or either way, really.
Mhm.
Her family to me has seemed like they've been pretty well. It's sort of hard for me to tell because sometimes I feel like they're really big on the NFP
Mhm.
thing, but then sometimes I think they're not from
Mm.
the sort of more the more rigid side of things, like a trad objection to
Like, they
NFP.
may not even be it may not be I mean, they may not even approve of NFP is what you're saying.
They might not.
Okay.
I don't explicitly ask because I don't want to
Yeah.
have an argument, but it seems sometimes I feel like that might be in general. They come at it. I think they come fair to say they come at things generally more from that side than not. I would say.
And not to jump too far ahead, but because how long you been married?
I think we got married in November 2023, so like
Okay.
a year and a half almost, I think.
I know from experience, my extended family, there's a couple of the siblings that had fertility issues, and it was really challenging for them to be in a trad household where that was
Yeah.
just expected to the point where I don't know if anyone came right and asked out and asked them, but probably thought maybe they're using contraception or maybe even just NFP or something like that. I
Mhm.
did you guys get glances early on, or were you pretty transparent about what was going on?
I think we've been pretty transparent about it.
Mhm.
Like my family doesn't. I mean, they want us to be happy and have kids
Yeah,
if we want to, but her
yeah.
family definitely, since they're a little bit more trad leaning.
Mhm.
But she's told like her sisters and everybody that
Yeah.
we've been wanting to do this, but just
Mhm.
hasn't worked. And then her sisters have had some experience with that as well. She's got
Okay.
like one of her sisters has 3 kids under 3, so she's doesn't
Mhm.
have any issues there. But then
Yeah.
her other sister has been married since 2017 or 2018, and they have no kids, and she's only like 31 or 32.
Wow.
So it's
Hmm.
not like a novel thing in the
Yeah.
family. We've seen it before, and in her case, it's been a lot longer for us even.
Yeah. Does
But
that
yeah,
help a little bit? Maybe that helped a little bit as you guys were going through things.
yeah, I think it's good. Just to not feel like there's something uniquely wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
it's something is wrong, but it's
Yeah.
not like
Yeah.
nobody's ever done it before,
Yeah.
or like no one has any clue what you're thinking or feeling. So yeah, I think that does help.
So, did you guys learn NFP before you got married then?
Yeah, that was a pretty big part of our pre-Cana and you know marriage prep stuff in general. Just learning
Mhm.
about NFP and tracking things, whatever different methods you wanted to use, and we we listened to those and we learned, but we knew like we were in our mid 30s, we're not mid 20s, so we were
You were
kind of
ready to start a family pretty
yeah,
early.
we were getting married, and then we were thinking that oh
Yeah.
well, we're just going to jump right in,
Mhm.
while it's still time's still on our side, so we weren't worrying too much about um NFP per se. Just we still used like the tracking and stuff was good
Mhm.
to help
Yeah. Trying
get
to conceive. Yeah.
pregnant. So
Yeah. I'm gonna go turn my furnace off so it doesn't. So
oh
just bear
sure.
with me. Okay. Yeah. My new studio has the furnace fan is right behind me, so when it kicks
Yeah.
on, it's annoying. Um, okay. So I always try to. I've never figured out the best way to answer this question, but I was thinking about this today. So feel free to answer this if you want or don't. But if Christopher West was grading how you and your wife made it through engagement and everything on your wedding day on a scale of 1 to 10, how close were you guys to a 10?
Honestly, I think we did pretty good even
Okay,
by
good.
Chris West standards. I think he would probably give us like I think probably like an 8 or a 9.
Okay.
We
All
were
right.
really like going by the book
Yeah.
for
Okay.
like really tried, really made an honest effort to.
Okay. Okay. That's what I needed to know. So you got married I think you said November of 23.
Mhm.
Um, so kind of walk us through the first phase. I mean, you guys weren't necessarily, I was starting school when we got married, so we kind of cheated a little bit on the honeymoon and wedding night, but like we legit probably should have stayed away from each other.
Uh-huh.
But how was the first days, weeks of married life for you guys?
It was good. We went on a honeymoon. We traveled for a week or 10 days or whatever it was, and we settled into our new house. And we were, you know, it, I think there's always a little bit of difficulty in adjusting, but
Yeah.
I think we were pretty well matched. So yeah, we were pretty ready to also
Mhm.
start having kids if possible. But we went for it, and then we didn't really think anything about it probably for like 5 or 6 months, I would
Mhm.
say. But at first, when you're newly married, I
Yeah.
think for me it was like, well, it's not the worst thing in the world,
Yeah. Right.
it's pregnant
Exactly.
right away. So it wasn't really,
Yeah.
well, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but yeah, after like, since we're in our mid 30s, after 5, 6 months go by, I'm like, okay, well,
Mhm.
not the end of the world, but maybe there's something happening, and just keep an eye on. And then, 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, then you're kind of knowing that something probably needs to get looked at.
So were you so like when you first got married, like there's sort of a spectrum. Like we're like actively trying to get pregnant, or maybe you're just making a habit every day and it doesn't matter. But there's a kind of a difference between like, well, we're not going to pay attention one way or another. We're gonna do it when we want to do it, and if we get pregnant, great. Versus, well, we know that during, let's say, day 10 through 15 of the cycle, that's the magic time. We're going to make sure we hit those days. Like how intentional were you early on in trying to get pregnant, or were you just simply, we're newlyweds, we're going to have a good time, and when we get pregnant, we get pregnant?
Yeah, I think for the first few months, it was more just,
Yeah.
whenever it felt
Yeah.
right, whenever it
Yeah.
seemed
Hmm.
fun, we would
Hmm.
do it. And then we didn't really focus on the tracking or charting or anything, probably for 5 months or so.
Okay. So then you did. So then you kind of use the information you had from your pre-K and NFP stuff, and then so like how many months of that did you go through, and like how did you kind of, like, I imagine you gradually amped up your efforts and to
Yeah.
try and use that information to get pregnant. Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, so I guess it started off more with like your really basic stuff. Like you said,
Mhm.
figuring out,
Mhm.
cycle day 1, and
Mhm.
to yeah, 10 to 15 kind of being the
Mhm.
sweet spot. And then just thinking, okay, let's try to make sure we hit,
Yep.
2 days, at least three
Mhm.
days, whatever it is in that. And then
Yep.
it sort of graduated into, well, that calendar method may or may not be super accurate. We need to track ovulation now
Oh.
with the
Mhm.
LH strips. So we got on those.
Mhm.
So you could sort of more pinpoint exactly, um, time it, just like when are you actually doing? Is it a little earlier than average? Is it later? Because that could
Yep.
change the
Mhm.
calculus a little bit. So we went to
Yep.
that, and then we tried that for a while, and then we thought, okay, now we need to get, you know professional help involved, maybe. So we got like a got in touch with a fertility doctor and set up appointments with him. And then we've basically, that's sort of still where we are now. But yeah, it's sort of been gradually ramping up.
So how long into your marriage, like, was it more than a year, less than a year, that you actually made the appointment with the fertility doctor then?
I think our first appointment was in December
Okay.
of 2024. So it was like just over a year
Mhm.
when we finally went to that.
Yeah. And so you've been, and you're still seeing them, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I'm curious, and I think you I'm sure you'll get to this a little bit, but I know, I think from chatting with you or other people, that when you start to recognize you have some fertility issues, the intimacy stops being quite as fun and it becomes a little more of
Mhm.
a chore. How, kind of when did that set in, or was it kind of gradual over time? Like how long did it stop? How long did the fun last before, like, this isn't as fun anymore?
Yeah, no, yeah, it's a really weird feeling really, because it
Mhm.
starts off pretty fun. Like
Mhm.
being a newlywed's great. It really
Yeah.
is. And
Mhm.
so you kind of think you'll never get tired of that. And I wouldn't
Yeah.
say it's that you get tired of it. It's
Yeah.
just that everything that makes intimacy fun in those early days is kind of lost
Yeah.
when it's sort of, you start to relate it more, or at least not, maybe not more, but to some degree with just failing. Um,
Mm.
and then you have to, address that. And then it just gets really almost like homework. Like,
Mm.
oh, it's cycle day 12. So
Gotta do it.
you better
Yeah.
be in the mood. I think you
Mhm.
have experience from sort of the other way around with that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So it just does make it's weird, because I mean, before we had this issue, I never would have thought that would
Yeah.
be. I could see, oh, maybe a couple times you're just like tired and you don't want to do it, but then the feeling of like, it's like almost dread, because
Mm.
if you're trying to have a kid and
Yeah.
then you're not, so every time you're doing it, you kind of
That's what
have
you're thinking about, right? You're thinking about that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you just kind of, I mean,
Mm.
there is sort of like a hope too,
Mm.
but for me, the hope comes in more when you're coming up to the next cycle
Yeah, you
and
got
you think like, okay, well, this is like blank slate.
yeah.
But like when you're in, that cycle day 12 range type thing, and then you're trying
Now
to
you
be,
gotta wait. Yeah.
it's like, oh, I really hope this works. And like, well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this, and
When you
but you
don't
actually
find out
do
for a
it.
couple of weeks, right? It
Yeah,
takes a couple of
yeah.
weeks before you could even test and
Yeah,
uh,
so it sort of like, makes you a little bit anxious, makes you a
yeah.
little,
Huh.
yeah, it's weird. I still don't quite have the words to describe it, but I just know that it's not the same as it is in your first, let's say, 3 or 4 months.
Yeah. Who who would you say was more negatively impacted by that kind of reality setting in? You or your wife, or was it equal?
I think we're both.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think it might be me a little bit more,
Mhm.
but I can't say I know that for sure. Just
Mhm.
I know how it is for me, and I have a decent idea how it is for her. I think it's been ramping up more for her.
Yeah.
I think that I got worried quicker, let's say. So I've
Yeah.
sort of been thinking about it longer, I
Mhm.
think. Like I was getting pretty concerned at like month 8, and then we
Yeah.
didn't get the doctor appointment till month 12. So,
Yeah.
so I think she's there now, but I think I started a little sooner.
Mhm. Got it. Do you want to talk about sort of what it's like kind of making that appointment and going through that, or is there anything else about the first, let's say, 12 months of marriage that we haven't got a chance to talk about that you think is important?
I think we pretty much covered the main parts of the first 12 months.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think getting to the point where you wanted to call a doctor was a pretty big milestone, because it's sort of
Yeah.
admitting that your
Yeah.
ideal, what you hoped for is
Yeah.
in jeopardy, and you don't want to do that. So I think that might be part of the reason why I think my wife was a little bit behind me in that, because you don't really want to
Mm.
make that call.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it's, but if you do need to make that call, you should do it now and not wait another year, because,
Well,
you know,
yeah, I'm sure for you
30.
guys, you probably feel like your mid 30s, like we're, I'm sure it probably feels like the clock is just racing past you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I've done a lot of research in the fertility world these days, and it seems to be that the best advice out there, they say if you're 35 or older, you should be making an appointment after 6 months. Whereas
Yeah.
if you're younger than that, you can wait a little bit more. But I didn't really know that until we were
Mhm.
a year in, and then I'm seeing everybody saying, "Oh yeah, you're 35, you need to do it at half a year." I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, let's
Yeah.
definitely do it now then."
Yeah. And any so other than making the appointment earlier, is there any advice you wish you could have given yourself either before you got married or early on that you wish you would have figured out a little earlier about any of this stuff?
Um, I think it's sort of easy to say now, but I didn't know anything about fertility at all
Mhm.
before this happened. Like I like even very basic things. I
Mm.
didn't know. I knew what ovulation was as a term, but I couldn't tell you when it happened, for
Okay.
example. Things like that. So I don't know if that would obviously wouldn't have changed anything, I don't think, but I would have had a better idea about what to look out for, and just would have felt like I had more knowledge instead of having to learn on the fly as it was happening. So I think that just would have maybe a little bit more comfortable. I also kind of think that, um, like when I think about our pre-Cana and marriage prep, so much of the focus was on, being fruitful and multiplying.
Mm.
And I kind of think it like I said, it's easy to say this from my position, but I kind of think there should have been more, hey guys, you might have issues with this.
Mm.
So if you do, here's something like you can talk to this kind of person, or here's like this kind of thing. But in the Catholic world, at least I haven't found many resources or advice or anything like that. And it seems to me like it's not super talked about in general. There's sort of niche circles, but I think overall there's not a huge awareness of how many people are going through it. And then it just seemed to me like kind of, I don't know, kind of like everything that anyone talked about for our entire engagement was about having kids and how many are you going to want, and
Yeah.
make sure you don't contracept, and then make sure you're open to life. And then I'm saying, well, we're extremely open to life. And now I don't really hear you guys like, and all I really hear is, well, oh, it's just not everyone's going to have kids, and you just kind of have to take up your cross. And I don't know, maybe they're right, but it seems just in contradiction to how like baby crazy the entire lead up to marriage is all.
Yeah. That's got to be hard, especially, it's just, I don't know if there's an irony there or if this is God's design, but, why is it that God had to sort of afflict you guys with this, at least for now, when I'm ashamed to admit, but like I secretly been begging for infertility for a long time, right?
Yeah.
I would gladly share a little bit of it. Like,
it'd be great.
So one thing I want to say about this, and I don't know how much, if any, more information your wife knew about her body and cycles and stuff, but one thing that, so we learned NFP because we knew we were going to have, because we had plans to not have kids for the first 3 years where I was finishing school. Okay. We made it 1 month. So, but we had grand plans. So we were charting, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months beforehand. My wife was very, she knew what was going on. She knew what to look for. I feel like I've known what day my wife is on her cycles since forever. Like I just know that now. I know, and it's always hard for me to comprehend how many people don't know that. Even if you don't plan to like use NFP right away, it would be valuable information. Like I'm always surprised by how many people, especially the trads, don't even want to know about it. Like I don't want to hear about it. Don't tell me about it. Like, well, you don't have to use it, but at least learn it. Maybe something happens where you have to, and it's much better to learn it, I think, before you get married than on the fly, like you said. So anyway,
definitely.
So okay, so who made the call? Whose idea was it to call the doctor? Do you remember?
I think it was my idea first. I had sort of gone rogue a little bit before because in my research and what we can do, try to diagnose something. Kind of the first general recommendation that I was seeing online, at least, was the cheapest thing and the easiest procedure that you could do is get a semen analysis done.
Which is easier said than done for Catholics, right?
Indeed, yeah, it's a very complicated thing. If you want to, go by the book, it's actually very complicated. But
can you give us some insight to what that was like and what it? I mean, what is by the book? So let's What is by the book for Catholics to get us like a sperm test done?
So if you're gonna really follow the letter of the law here, at least I don't know if there's like an official ruling on this, but I think I've seen this on the U.S. bishop's website for what that's worth. Is that you would have to, if you want to get a semen analysis done, which would tell you, really important things that you would need to know, like your sperm count, the motility. So if they're moving. The shape of them, because all of those things can affect, the likeliness of fertilizing an egg. And sometimes guys, they'll take these analyses and then they'll find out, oh, they have 0 sperm. So that's really good information to know if that's the case, instead of just blindly trying and like the answer's so easy. If you would have just done this very simple test in the early stages, you could save yourself a lot of time and grief. But so if you're Catholic though, so most people, they would just masturbate into a medical container, a cup basically, and then you would take that to your doctor, and then you would let them analyze it, and then a couple days later they'll send you a form back, and they'll a document, or they'll send you a PDF or something, and then you'll have your information, and if you need to follow up, they'll follow up, but if not, then you won't. But if you're doing it the strictly Catholic way, you can't just masturbate, because we know that the natural end of the sexual function is for procreation. And masturbation is a mortal sin, and you can't do that. So thus, we enter into this very strange world of, I don't know exactly what to call it.
The holy condom?
Yes, the holy condom.
Okay. It's real.
HLLEY. So for some reason, they've determined that the way you'd have to do this is you would have to get a condom, which is also weird because we've been told our whole lives that that's but in this case, it's good because, see, you're going to be open to life because you're going to poke a little hole in it. And that is going to be enough openness to life so that the vast majority of the sperm that gets caught in the condom that then you put into the cup. But I don't even think that's true. First of all, like, I think that you need a certain amount of sperm to even fertilize an egg. Like it's not really.
I'm pretty certain I only need one. I'm pretty certain I only need one.
Yeah, maybe. But I'm not a doctor, but like something I think, because here what I can't remember what the criteria is, but they'll consider you to be azospermatic, so having no sperm underneath a certain count. So it might not even really be 0, but if you're under it, don't quote me, but it's something like if you're under 20 million, that's you're not going to get anybody pregnant with that, and you really should be above like 70 or 80 or 100 ideally. So I'm not even really sure that the amount that would even get through the holy condom would be enough. So I don't know that that's open to life, but it's just like this weird, like trying to get by on technicalities, when the whole problem in the first place, though, is that you're not, like I said a little bit earlier, the problem isn't that we're not open to life. We've been trying to be open to life for 17 months now. So it's just funny, like, oh, so you want to get this analysis done or whatever, and I know your entire problem is that you can't get pregnant, but maybe this one time, like the 3 sperm that get through the condom is going to get you pregnant. And it would be totally like unfalsifiable too. But I just feel extremely silly. It's almost, it's really embarrassing to explain it to someone who's not. Actually, it's embarrassing to explain to most Catholics too, but especially someone who's not, because, these people at the clinics, I mean, there are like Catholic fertility doctors too, but most of them will just kind of blankly look at you and like, what are you talking about?
So, okay. So, all right. Now I have questions then. So So you're just using a regular fertility. So it's not like you go to a Catholic clinic where they hand you the holy condom. You just go get one. Hope you don't run into Father Rippiger on the way back from the counter,
Yeah.
and you just poke a hole yourself. Is that what you do?
So yeah, okay, first let me clarify something. To do so like I said, I made the call. I kind of went rogue on the fertility issue, and I did the analysis without, telling anybody. So I did not do the holy condom
Okay. All right.
when it
Okay.
came to that. We
Okay.
have we did get one for another procedure that we were doing, which was an IUI, which is intrauterine insemination. So people
Mm.
think of that as like the turkey baster, basically, or people used
Yep.
to call it artificial insemination. But for
Yeah.
that,
Which is I understand, and I actually learned this back in college. They were talking up. I remember the teacher, ethics teacher, was saying we think the Catholic Church allows this, but we're not sure. But basically, what you're saying, use a holy condom, and
yeah,
then they keep the sperm and eggs separate until inside, like you said, they
mhm,
fertilization takes place inside her as opposed to a in a petri dish and then put in there, and there we think we've skirted all the letter of the
right.
law, and is that more or less what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
I think the IUI in principle doesn't um, contradict any official Catholic teaching, except for the point that you would need to use that holy condom.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but yeah, as far as I can know, they don't have an issue with actually, putting the sperm back into um, inseminate inside the woman's body. I don't think they have an issue with that.
Okay, got it. So okay, so in and I think you said you didn't go through the whole. Did you go through the holy condom route in the other procedure, or is that something you haven't had to deal with yet? Then.
So yes, we've done one single IUI, and we got the holy condom for that one. I don't know where it came from. I think the doctor ordered it, and I think it shipped to our house. Um, but that was a very weird experience, and
Yeah.
I sent you this Reddit thread the other day that I saw someone else. They were talking about it in context of the semen analysis, but it's really the same thing. And this person, I loaded it up. They were talking about using the holy condom for semen analysis, and he used words like uh, dehumanizing, absurd. Um, he wrote a lot, and just disturbing,
Yeah.
and a lot of things like that. And it sounds kind of dramatic if you've never done it. But when I was
Yeah.
reading that, I was like, wow, I didn't know anyone else thought this at all.
Uh,
Because that was exactly my experience. Like this, it was so uncomfortable. I didn't enjoy it. My wife didn't enjoy it. It
yeah.
felt like the weirdest thing in the world.
All this, I mean, even it doesn't even have to be masturbation. I mean, the two of you could work together, but all
Mhm.
this to avoid just depositing things right into the specimen cup, right? That's where we're trying to avoid here.
Yeah, to do it directly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I had always wondered if so you do this at home. It's not like you go to a clinic and they have a room for you, and because I didn't know how long, like how quickly do you have to like drive quickly to the
Yeah. So
fertility, like you get a hotel across the street?
that's the other thing, is that there is a time
Yeah,
constraint on this.
yeah.
So it's like I was saying earlier, I didn't like scheduling it like, oh, you have to have sex sometime today or tomorrow. This was you need to
At 11:15 and
you
be
need
here
to
by
have your
11:30.
cup at the doctor within I don't remember, it's like a half an hour or
Yeah,
something.
I
Like
I totally believe it. That's why I didn't know it's possible to do it other than, like, on site, because that's what I'm thinking. Well, you gotta, like
you can do it on site if
that'd
you
be really
want.
awkward.
They said if you live, more than 20 minutes away from the clinic, they want you to do it there.
Yeah.
But we live like 10, 15, so
Okay.
They told me we could do this wherever and then just get it there within like, a pretty low time constraint.
Yeah. Don't pull me over, officer. I got some.
That would be awkward.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, see, this is where I think people really struggle to take some of this stuff seriously,
Right.
myself included. This is where the intrinsically wrong can never be done, even regardless of the circumstances, starts to break down. And this is not an extreme example. Like this,
Right.
what you're going through is not uncommon, right? I
Mhm.
mean, it's certainly not rare. And for what? Like, what are we trying to accomplish by this? It reminds me of the Amish who can't use electricity, but if you plug in the cord for them, they'll run the power tool. Like, okay, well, what is that?
Yeah, yeah,
That's what it feels like. And so
exactly.
what impact, if any, has that had on your faith in all of this stuff or any of this stuff? Maybe you're fine. I don't know.
It's
It would drive me crazy.
it just well, to me, just immediately, it feels like it makes us a kind of humiliating situation
Yeah.
more humiliating.
Yeah.
I mean, like, there's nothing. I mean, infertility happens. It's nothing to be ashamed of. But
Yeah.
you want to have kids, but then
Yeah.
they're telling you, well, you can't do this. You have to do this weird sex thing. You can't just be
Yeah.
normal. And everything we're doing is so. And I have it easy compared to my wife. When she goes to the
Oh,
clinic, they're putting things in places and injecting
yeah.
things, and it's way more invasive.
Yeah.
So on top of all of that, the church comes in and is like, "Oh, here's
Mm.
this one normal thing you can do. Guess what? You can't even do that." Um, so it has made me, as far as like your question about what it's done to my faith, I don't think it's affected my faith other than I just think a lot more about these justifications for what is being taught. And I I just don't I don't think that they're correct about things like this. And I think a lot of it is like when you consider, okay, what's the intent of this, the analysis or the IUI or whatever it is you're doing, clearly I think the intent is to get pregnant, or to
Yeah.
diagnose a problem to get pregnant later.
That's the
And
whole basis for all the rules. Like the whole rule is like all
yeah,
this stuff is designed for achieving pregnancy. That's what's so maddening about it is you're trying to you're like what do I say? You're giving up all the fun stuff of sex because you want to become
exactly.
parents, right? And no.
Nope.
Let me plug in the cord for you. It's just
Right. And it's just like nobody is doing this stuff for fun.
no.
I wish I didn't know what IUI
Yeah.
was. I was
Yeah.
happier when I didn't know what that
Yeah.
meant. So just the idea, like, it's sort of like offensive to me that people out there think like that we're trying to, break rule. I don't know. Nobody's told me this personally, but I know, probably someone watching this now would say like, "Oh, you're trying to break the rules because you want it to do like the easy way or something." And it's not the easy. Like, it is not the easy way. It is hard regardless.
Yeah. It's like
So I just don't want to like it just feels that they're adding these burdens for no reason, or no obvious reason, at least.
it's like everyone can see the obvious absurdity of the position, but everyone is too scared to like just come out
Mhm.
and say it. Like that's what it amounts to.
I think so.
Um, this is why what's so hard for me. It's not even like there shouldn't be any rules, right? It's like
Mhm.
I'm okay if you want to say most people don't use contraception. Most
Mhm.
people don't masturbate. Most people don't do this, but can we acknowledge there may be circumstances where you have to do that, or
Right.
it's not going to upend some great cosmic order if the poor guy that's been trying for a year to get pregnant with his wife just uses a cup, right? Like there'll be plenty more where that came from 2 hours from now. Like, right? Like, what are we really afraid of here? There's a strange fear of God built into this that
Yeah.
underscores so much of this, I think.
And, it's one thing too that, if it was just, oh, the church teaches that you shouldn't do this or masturbation into the cup, that would be, against the rules. But it's not even just, oh, it's against the rules. No, if you're going by the book, it says it's a mortal sin, which
Yeah.
you would go to, if you believe that,
Yeah,
you would go to
it's not
hell.
even it's not even a sin. It's like you're in hell for eternity sin. Like, it's just
Intrinsically disordered.
it's such an extreme leap that
Yeah.
it's just like I struggle. I mean, I struggle with this stuff to like, how do I with a straight face tell a Protestant, oh, by the way,
Right.
become Catholic and let me tell you about the holy condom rule. Like they would run the other way. Like, why would you walk into this thing voluntarily? I can't imagine anyone would do that, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you'd have a hell of a time making that deal with Protestants or anybody else.
Come back after menopause, buddy. I mean, that's what I want to. That's what I want to tell people. I mean, I can't say that officially, but part of
Yeah,
me just save yourself some grief. Come back after menopause,
indeed.
and okay. So, well, and I hope my I guess making fun of some of the stuff doesn't. I mean, I really sympathize with what you're going through, and I
Oh,
don't mean
yeah.
to minimize what you're going
No,
through, but
not at all.
it's so maddening. I I can see you have the best of intentions here, right? And how can that not matter? Like, that I think is just
Yeah,
where the Western church really struggles to be to have a persuasive argument for people when this is the kind of situations we create for
and
ourselves
it's
seemingly unnecessarily.
yeah, and for me, I think in the rest of my life, the church and my faith has been a good thing when I've encountered other, tragedies or struggles. It's been something that is helpful to go to church or to like
Yeah.
talk to a priest or pray this devotion or that devotion.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. And then
Yeah.
it's just weird in this case, instead of making me feel, some, like, it can't fix everything, but you can feel some kind of peace. In this case, it's kind of doing the opposite of that.
Yeah,
And
it's the
we talked
it's
about
the
this
cause. Yeah,
earlier.
it is adding to the frustration, no doubt.
And it's funny because when you read these, fertility websites and they talk about, well, one thing that really hurts you when you're trying to get pregnant is being stressed.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, well, I don't know if we'll ever get pregnant because these holy condoms are really doing a number on me.
Doggone it. Um, yeah. So okay. So you're sounds like you guys are still trying to do things. So far, you haven't been able to
Yeah,
succeed yet, huh?
we've not given up. Like in the last couple months, we've been doing. Well, I guess my wife has been doing it. She's been taking a drug called letrozole, which kind of stimulates. Um, I forget what they call it. I think they call it super ovulation. So
Mhm.
it'll mature two or three or even four follicles. So with more of that being produced, then the odds of getting a sperm to an egg is a little higher. She's been doing like a ovulation shot to trigger the ovulation, so it's not up to, like, you don't have to figure it out when it's happening. She'll
Mhm.
do a shot, and then in 24 hours that ovulation is happening. You'll have a few follicles, and then now we've done one IUI last month. We're taking this month off because we
Mhm.
have to talk about it a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, and then with the IUI, you would, in theory, raise those chances even more by injecting the sperm right where the eggs are, and then hopefully they figure out where to go from there. But so yeah, we according to the stats, it looks like you could reasonably do that, the IUI route, like 4 or 5 times, max 6. So we've done 1. So we're within sort of, it didn't work the first time, but that not necessarily anything to be, too pessimistic about yet.
So do they do anything? So with the holy condom, you fill the condom and then you rush to the clinic or whatever.
Mhm.
Do you both go in then? So do they have to like kind of immediately inject her, or is there a more of a, do they freeze it? Like what's the time
So
period between that and like
the sperm sample will have to get there. I think it was probably like an hour before. So I had to bring it in an hour prior to her appointment.
okay,
So
I
what
see.
they do is they call it washing. They do like wash the sperm, which I don't know
Mhm.
the exact scientific mechanism that's going on, but they're basically like strengthening it in some
Mhm.
way. So of your total count, it'll kill off a lot of it, but then the remaining ones are like the best ones,
Wow.
and then they go exactly where they're supposed to be, and then you just hope they can navigate the small distance between where they're injected and the egg. But that process of washing takes apparently at least like 30-40 minutes.
Okay. Okay. That's what I assume. Well, I assume they did something before they sort of
Mhm.
deposited it, but I wasn't sure if it was like had to be done in, but it sounds like it has to be done, in short duration. Like it's not like they freeze it and come back tomorrow or next week. It's
No.
all,
Yeah, it's like
all
right away.
yeah. Okay. So like now, like from your standpoint, like is it typical if you give one like semen sample, can they figure out from that, or do some guys have to go through multiple trials as they run different kinds of analysis to figure out if you're the bottleneck, so to speak?
So from my in our case at least, I did 2 analyses just with different people
Okay.
just to make sure that like their machine wasn't off that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just they're not that. I mean, I don't. It's not cheap. They cost like $200,
Okay.
but compared to the other procedures, that's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So I figured, well, let's just
Yeah.
make sure. So my numbers were good. The doctor didn't have any concerns about that. So, and even when we did the IUI, they sort of just like relayed a count, and the count was good. I think it was like the post wash was like 40 million, which they really want you to have at least 5. So they were actually really
Okay.
optimistic about that. Didn't work, but
Yeah.
but like I said, we could still reasonably do it a few, like 3 or 4 more times.
Okay. Got it. So, um, the I so I suppose then when you test normal, so to speak, it's pretty much narrows it down to something going on with her.
Yeah.
And is there a lot of testing that she has to do? And I assume there aren't the same Catholic ethical barriers. It's much more, what do we got to do and whatever we do it. I mean, I don't. I'm trying to
Yeah.
imagine Father Ripperger trying to break down how they test a woman's
Yeah, as far
reproduction.
as I don't think there's any
Yeah.
ethical concerns
Yeah.
for those tests, because they'll see if she has like endometriosis,
Yeah.
which she doesn't.
Mhm.
They do this HSG procedure to see if your fallopian tubes are blocked. So they basically inject like it's kind of like ink that they put in, and then they see if it gets hung up somewhere. But that was not an issue either. There might be another test or two she's done, but so things like that don't present any ethical
Yeah.
challenges at all.
I assume, and maybe I shouldn't assume, but it there's probably more they can do to fix challenges on her side of things than you. I suspect. Is that true?
Um, it's sort of, well, I think maybe in general, yes. So the problem that we've run into in our case specifically is that they measure these hormone levels. One
Mm,
is AMH, one is FSH, and they're different ways of assessing the ovarian reserve. So like the AMH level is supposed to be, I think it's supposed to be like 2.0 or above is what you're looking for, and she's like less than half of that. And then like under zero point 0.1, and then, or sorry, under 1.0. And then like the FSH is supposed to be below 30, and I think she's like 33 or something like that. So both of those taken together, sort of the picture that they're looking at is, oh, well, you don't have as many eggs as you should have left. So
mm,
I don't know, and I don't know if they know. It's really, what I've also learned is a lot of fertility, even
they
with
don't
all the
really.
science stuff, is still kind of a mystery to people.
Yeah, yeah,
Because like I don't know like if she
mm,
ovulates, but the egg doesn't come off, and maybe that's been happening a lot.
yeah,
We really just
mhm,
don't know. We just know that the reserve might be low, but then that doesn't necessarily mean the quality is low.
mm.
So I don't know what to make of that, and I'm not sure if they do. Basically, from our interactions with the fertility doctors, um, they really want people to do IVF if things
Right,
don't
because then they
work.
can take I suppose then they could take her eggs,
Right.
examine them, figure out, make fertilization happen, then deposit inside of her, right?
Yes.
That's
And
okay.
that's, that's a whole other ethical issue that we've
Yeah.
talked about too. But, I have a hard, I think that because my wife will say like, oh, this doctor, he just wants to, hawk IVF all the time and
Mm,
whatever. She doesn't really like that. But then I kind of also think, he's probably right.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
if you
yeah,
want your best chances, I think he's right.
right.
Um,
Yeah,
and it's just that it's such a that's even more complicated than the holy condom thing.
yeah,
Um, and I still don't really know what I think. I would love to just get pregnant now and not have to think about it.
yeah.
But like just in our own personal life, we've had another friend, a friend couple that's our age. Actually, the wife is a little bit older than my wife even, and they got married last year, and they've been trying to have kids, and nothing's happened. And then they did the IVF route, and she is now 3 months pregnant on the
Mm,
first try. So that's
yeah,
another thing. And I'm not even trying to have an opinion on IVF for the moment, but it is funny. Like, well, it's not funny, but just, oh, so like you good Catholics, you can't do this, but everyone else can, and
uh,
they're going to be happy with, like, I'm sure they'll be great
yeah,
parents. Like I don't think they're evil people for doing that. I think
yeah.
they're going to be a great family, honestly. So, but I have to sort of wrap my head around, like, okay, God, why is it cool
Mm,
for them to do that? Or maybe, well, it's not cool for them to do that, but I have a hard time looking at someone's happy
yeah.
family and being like, there's something wrong with that. Um, but yeah, that's another conundrum for sure.
And maybe you haven't researched this enough, but I know the common objection, the one I totally sympathize with, is they create more embryos than people are going to realistically
Mm.
use, and so what happens? I mean, can't they just, let's say, for try and make 3 embryos? So worst case
Yeah.
scenario, you become pregnant with triplets, or is that just maybe you're spending so much money? Like, if we're going to do this, we're going to try a dozen. I don't know. I don't
And
know enough
yeah,
about it.
I think most people, like, unless you are Catholic or something like that,
Yeah, yeah,
they would just say, well, let's make as many as we
many,
can because
yeah,
we want to maximize our chances. But as I understand it, there is nothing to stop you or like a doctor from going in and like, oh, I'm only going to take 4 eggs out or whatever. Like you don't have to do 15.
yeah.
And, as far as I understand, I saw some article. I don't remember where it was from, but even the Russian Orthodox Church approved of it in that circumstance, that it provided it's done in the context of a married
Yeah,
couple.
I mean,
with their own sperm and their own egg, and only like maxing out at like creating 4 embryos, because they're not all going to live. They're going to die
yeah,
eventually, but that happens too with normal sex too. Like you don't know how many times an egg has fertilized that just didn't implant, for example.
yeah, yeah. And like and that's where I think, not to get too much into the IVF
Hmm.
world too much, but I get uncomfortable when people compare IVF and, let's say, the quote unquote destruction of embryos with
Yeah.
abortion, at 4 months gestation. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get, in theory those are synonymous, but let's be real. Like you said, there's probably plenty of times in just regular everyday occurrence where people have sex, they fertilize an egg and it doesn't implant and it just goes out with everything else,
Mhm.
right? And we don't stop and mourn all that, or we don't stop people from having sex. Like that's just a natural process, right?
Yeah.
Um, so, mm,
Yeah, it certainly, yeah, with your example comparing it to abortion, it certainly doesn't feel the same. Like just from an emotional level, for whatever that's worth, it doesn't seem like the same thing to me. But I don't want people to get mad at me.
well, I know, I
But yeah,
I mean, it's just hard to just have to, like, give, you know, great. Yeah, we're all thumbs up on some of this absurd stuff. Fine, whatever.
mhm,
I'll say the right stuff, but we all know what we're thinking in the back of our minds. Like,
yeah,
do we have to be so juvenile about it that we have to pretend like some of these rules don't don't make a lot of sense?
yeah,
Um, I don't know. I mean, it's just, these are the kinds of things where I'm better off if I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it, because it doesn't put me in a better place in my
for
relationship.
sure.
God, it just doesn't.
Yeah, I agree.
N That seems very un-Catholic. It seems like we are, like, that's part of what makes us special, is we confront hard things, right? We don't
Right.
we don't shy away from a problem, an intellectual problem, but it sure feels like we're called to do that a lot as Catholics. It seems to me anyway.
Yeah, I think it'd be easier if our intellectual framework maybe adjusted a little bit, and then
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd be less um, less resistant to it, let's say.
Yeah, it's like it's like a concrete wall. Like a concrete is very strong, but it's also very brittle. Like, it'll hold a lot of weight, but it
Mhm.
can't bend, and if it bends, it breaks. Like, that's sort of how I look at Catholic doctrine. Like, there's something very robust and strong about it,
Sure.
but it's very inflexible. And people I know, I'm sure, they can't handle the seeming absurdity of some of this stuff that maybe all will become clear as day when we pass on to eternity. But in the meantime, it creates this intellectual chaos in your mind that some people just can't keep going at it, and they're like, I got to go do something else. And I feel bad for those people, in
Yeah.
part because it seems unnecessary. It's like, why these people love everything about their faith except some of these things that we talk about. Why can't we just open the door just a crack and maybe let
I
some?
wish there were just, a little bit more reasonable allowance for exceptions in some
Yeah,
cases. But even if
yeah,
you want to say, the people that made the rules, they're like great rules even. They're
yeah,
in
yep,
90% of 95 plus percent of the time, really
yeah.
the ideal rule. But even, you can't foresee every single
No,
possible
yeah,
scenario.
yeah,
And just having the little bit of, rationality, just say like, yeah, in this case, and like I said, it could be 5% of the time, but I wish there were an allowance for that 5%. So you didn't have to feel like because I think some people, I mean, I'm not to that point, but I don't know if I would get there. Like, wow, I do all this, I do that, I do that. And then this one thing,
yeah.
well, that's sending me to hell anyway. So like, why am
It's
I
true.
doing the rest of it?
Yeah,
So
what is it? Yeah. No, it's a very real problem. And even if we just it's almost like if we just inverted it from the standpoint of don't do these things to like if if you want to feel safe in your faith, if you want to feel like here's a path that if you follow this, you can rest assured that you are
yeah,
not going to go to
mhm,
hell. Fine. Like, right? Like, offer it as a roadmap. This is a sure thing. Like, if you
yeah,
follow the Christopher West method and Father Ripperger or whatever, if you do all these things, you can be confident that you're going to go to heaven or at least not go to hell. I would be okay with that too,
yeah,
right? But still allow some alternative paths, but do so at your own risk. I'd be okay with that, but it's just hard when you say, "Nope."
yeah. Is that would at least seem more honest to me, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So, well, I'm so sorry to hear what you're going through. But I guess I'm happy that you're still a little, early in the process, and you may have some options available
Yeah,
to you. But I really do appreciate you sharing what this is not the normal this is not the normal stuff that most of us come in to complain about. We
right.
have the opposite problem. So I really appreciate you coming in and sharing this stuff. Anything else about the process that we haven't got a chance to talk about that you'd like to touch on before we wrap up here?
No, I think we pretty well handled everything. It's a
Yeah.
great conversation.
Yeah. No, I'm really glad you were able to do this, and I do wish you and your wife the very best.
Thanks,
And
man.
maybe we can I hope we can come back in a few months, 6 months, and have some more positive news, and you can put
Yeah,
up
that'd be great.
the final chapters of what you have to go through, because it doesn't sound fun. But good luck to you. Let's pray for these guys and hope for the best for you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you, Herschel. Thank you, everyone who showed up in the chat. Appreciate you guys. Obviously, if people have any questions or things after the fact, leave them in the comments. If anyone would like to get a hold of Herschel, just message me and I'll pass on your information if you'd like. Otherwise, yeah. Thanks everyone for showing up. And until next time, everyone, have a good one.